The Super Mario Bros. Movie, as it stands right now on Sunday morning, April 16th, is heading for nearly $200 million in this frame. And this is the second weekend, something that other studios would be envious of in their first. This movie has no signs of slowing down anytime soon, especially with two of its largest international markets, Japan and South Korea, set to open here in the next 2 weeks. This movie is just going to keep going. It's no longer a question of, will it reach $1 billion? It's now a question of, how far beyond $1 billion will this movie go? Let's get into it. Renegade Online. Well, folks, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video that may not yet be subscribed to this channel at Valiant Renegade, please take a moment. Turn that little red subscribe button to gray, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment below this video with your thoughts before you head out the door today. We're talking Super Mario Bros. The second weekend is a monster. It would be a monster opening weekend for virtually any animated feature out there that would hit theaters. But this was the second weekend, not the first, and this thing just keeps right on going. Now reporting in from Deadline magazine, we've got an almost $90 million second weekend here in the US and Canada, the domestic market, with an over $90 million additional in the international markets, which I again remind people are yet to include Japan and Korea. Those are going to be massive markets for the Mario Brothers movies, and I don't think anything less than $150 million will be the final tally between those two, and I perhaps expect to see those push closer to $200 million when all's said and done. We'll know more in the next 10 days or so, once Korea and Japan open on April 26th and the 28th, respectively. From Deadline Magazine's Nancy Tartaglione, the international journalist for the box office, reported this morning at 10:04 a.m. U.S. Central Standard Time, the Super Mario Bros. Movie barrels to $678 million worldwide, and that is up about $20 million from just 12 hours ago. The Saturday night update for the international and the domestic side had this weekend closing out at $659 million, but as we wake up this morning, that figure has increased again substantially. And that is something of significant note. Again, these estimates by Sunday morning or Saturday night are usually fairly on the money in terms of percentage. To be off by a figure as much as $20 million globally at this scale is something to behold. That means that these tracking websites are still having trouble getting hold of the accelerating interest in this film. They can't even nail these numbers down. I mean, to be off by maybe $5 or $10 million, I can understand, but by 20, perhaps more million, because that's still not even the final figures. We're not going to see those until Monday or Tuesday, perhaps, when all of the receipts for the weekend actually settle and get finalized. We might be looking at 25 million off from initial estimates coming in from this weekend. It's amazing. And this movie will be at $1 billion here in the next 7 to 10 days for almost certain. And then Japan and Korea open. And it's really going to get wild because it's still going to be coasting in the domestic market, the other international markets, and you add those two to it, you have a giant bonfire of box office going on right now for Universal, and they are loving every minute of it. And let's look at the numbers who have updated the domestic and the international side of things. $347.8 million estimated through Sunday today. International box office, $330 million estimated through the end of Sunday today as well. Now, had Japan and South Korea managed to open this film concurrently with the rest of the world, that $330 million international box office would very easily be closer to 450 at this point in my estimation. So really, we could be looking at a nearly $800 million box office at this point. But again, that's going to catch up. But let's take a look at the numbers specifically. And one thing you'll note on these international box office numbers, Mexico and the UK are at the top of this chart. Mexico right now with 28 million, 19.4 million in the UK, Germany at 17, China at only 13 million. Now, these new weekend numbers have not been divvied up into their respective countries yet. You'll find on the numbers that those totals are down at the bottom in rest of the world. They eventually will be partitioned out into the individual countries. But as of right now, if we look at it, we can see that China really is not a big player in this movie, as has been the case with many international releases that actually have been allowed into China up to this point, at least in the last 18 months or so. They're just not what they used to be. And as a reminder, China only returns about 25% of that box office back to a distributor, in this case like Universal, whereas the average rest of the world, not including the US and Canada, of course, would return closer to about 42 to 43% in this day and age, with about 55% or so coming back in from the domestic side. No matter how you slice it, the Super Mario Bros. Movie at this point obviously is in clear profit territory, with about a $100 million production budget and even an estimated $150 million marketing budget, which I think for a film like this is very reasonable at this point, particularly considering how strong this movie has opened. Universal is very, very much incentivized to continue to spend additional marketing dollars to keep driving the box office at this point. And with an assumed $250 million all-in cost for a film like this movie crossed its profitability threshold at around $500 million. And that happened on Thursday this past week, just about 3 or 4 days ago. Everything at this point is gravy, at least what actually makes it back from the box office to the distributor. And of course, that doesn't include things like immense merchandising sales that this movie has enjoyed. And I think it's only going to get bigger from here. That will also be added to once it exits its theatrical window and goes into premium video demand, or PVOD or PVOD, for sales and rentals, as well as physical media. And then, of course, there's the big lucrative contract that Universal has after this movie will spend its first 4 months of shelf life in the streaming world on Peacock, Universal's proprietary streaming service, and then move over to Netflix for the next 10 months of the Pay 1 window before coming back home to Peacock. That deal with Netflix is multi-year and worth billions of dollars over the course of several films that they put out. So again, good on Universal for finding a happy middle ground to support both their own proprietary streaming service and still raking in a ton of third-party revenue for licensing out their very valuable content like Super Mario Bros., Jurassic World, Minions: Rise of Gru, so on and so forth. Now, what's particularly stunning about the international markets, you can see here back from the Deadline article, the second overseas frame is estimated at 94.1 million from 71 markets. This reps an amazing just 28% drop from last weekend's record-setting opening. A 28% drop, even in the international market, is absolutely stunning. Now, in the domestic market, we saw that drop closer to 40%, although, again, at this point, we're looking at estimates that may get a little bit better or a little bit worse. But a 41% drop from the first weekend, especially considering that the movie had 2 extra days on its opening, Wednesday and Thursday, starting on April 5th. That's even crazier. And that goes to prove how different a movie like Super Mario Bros. Is performing at the box office versus, say, your average title from Marvel Studios and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Those films are heavily front-loaded at the box office. We've talked many times before and joked that you can almost set a Swiss watch by how badly those films perform after their first weekend. With whatever they do, that opening weekend, they're pretty much going to finish up between a 2.25 and maybe a 2.5x on the high side. The Super Mario Bros. Movie is already past that in its second weekend. That means it has a much longer set of legs compared to its opening weekend, the Friday through Sunday, discounting, of course, Wednesday and Thursday prior to that. This movie is just rolling, whereas the Marvel movies just tend to drop dead after a few days. And as if that wasn't enough, on the domestic side, Anthony D'Alessandro reported late last night, More high scores for the Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelenic directed movie Super Mario Bros. It jumped 75% between its second Friday of $22.6 million and its second Saturday of $39.5 million. That climb from a Friday to Saturday is even fairly well outside the range of normal for almost any film. And like I said before, this is your juggernaut this year, and I'll predict right now, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, in terms of global box office, is going to be the monster to beat this year. Even looking ahead to movies like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that's due out in a few weeks, is now showing a very soft opening of somewhere around $130 million based on initial projections here in the US and Canada. That would be bad news for Marvel Studios if that comes to fruition. We'll talk more about that on the live show today around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the US. And The Little Mermaid coming up a few weeks after that. We still don't have any early estimates, but based on some of the backlash we're starting to see from some of the fandom out there, they don't seem too enamored with this. And looking towards the summer, there's some big names to come out. Dead Reckoning, Mission Impossible 7, and then you've got Indiana Jones. You've got Elemental from the Walt Disney Company. You have quite a few things that are due to hit, hoping to hit the heights in the box office. But at this point, even down to the end of the year with movies like Dune Part 2, I'm not sure if there's anything that can actually take out the current king right now, Mario and Luigi. It's going to be one to watch. Stay tuned right here to Valiant Renegade. Hope y'all are having a wonderful day. Leave some thoughts and comments below. We'll see you this afternoon on the live show right here on Valiant Renegade. And until then, take care.